right, welcome to another edition of a Diary of a Sales Expert podcast, and I'm really pleased to have a great guy with me today who is a guy I know well, is a guy who's achieved a lot in his life, and we're going to talk a lot about it, but over what he's done. But a great pleasure to have Matt Garman with me this morning. So, morning, Matt. How are you?
Morning. I'm well. Thank you very much.
Look, so look, we're going to start by talk about a bit about your career, because look, for those that don't know you, I mean, I'm going to give a brief outline that you've had a sales career, you've had a business career, you've had a career achieving incredible challenges, doing some incredible things, which culminated in, rowing the Atlantic 2 years ago. Is it a year and a half ago now? I can't remember what it was.
No, we were still rowing this time last year.
You were still right. That's right. There you go. Shows how fast time moves. So you've just finished rowing the Atlantic last February. That's right. So we'll talk a little bit about a number of things over the course of today, and we'll leave this in some inspiration for people to achieve what they want to. But just for those that don't know you, talk about your background, because you've been in sales as well all your life, like me. So talk to people about how you got started into sort of sales in your first few jobs. I know you've shared it with me around where you've been on the boat with your uncle and the family. Talk to people that don't know you a bit about your background and how you got started in business.
I think the short long story is that I don't think I really sort of fitted in a school. I didn't really apply myself. I had two interests at school. One was playing rugby. The other one was going fishing with my friends. And much to the family's disgust, a week after I left school at 16, I got myself a job as a T-boy on a trawler, which also resulted in me being a little bit black sheep. So I actually ended up leaving home at 16 as well. That's a different story. We're not going to go there today. I worked on a commercial fishing boat for 5 years. Two things happened. I bought my first flat when I was 19 that I couldn't afford. And then the second thing was one of the guys on one of the boats that we tied up next to actually was killed on deck. And it kind of coincided with the time I was about 19, 20. And I thought, okay, maybe there's other things to do. So no qualifications. So the only job I could get was a commission-only job selling life insurance. But one of the things I talk about quite openly now is that only 12 weeks worth of training, which is just incredible these days, because I think there's people, if I speak at an event, there's people there that haven't had 12 weeks of training in their careers. So anyway, did life insurance for a while, loved the selling, loved the people bit, didn't like life insurance, got a job. I left and worked for a small IT business in Eastbourne as a commission sales guy. I only did commission only. I've never had a proper job, to be honest with you. So,
we'll come to the bits around commission only in a moment. But just really before we come back to your trawler life, because trawlers don't go out 9 till 5, do they? So what time did you have to get up in the morning to get out on the trailer boat?
Well, we were mostly a day boat, so we would be sort of 3 or 4 in the morning till sort of 7, 8 at night. It was hard work, really, really hard work. And then sometimes we do day, night, and a day, but mostly day working stuff. So it's not like sitting down at my desk on my chair like this. It was proper grown-up hard work.
What values did that instill in you at that age?
Well, I mean, I've always been a worker. I've always been, I think my family as well, my family before my family sort of thing, we've always been hard workers. My dad was always a hard worker. My mum was always a hard worker. So, but I think the actual grind of doing it was like, just get your head down, get the job done, do it as well as you can do. And that's one of the things that I suppose my folks have always said, well, if you're going to do a job, do it properly. Just do it properly. But no, there was some ridiculous hours. And it was a boy growing up in a man's job.
Yeah. And I guess when you came off a trawler boat, going out, it didn't exactly smell great if you smelled the fish, basically.
Well, yeah, but that's a misconception. It don't really, there's only smell when it's a bit off, isn't it? But no, so it was, but then, so I've still got a lot of friends actually in that space, and I still see them regularly. But no, it certainly, and obviously things have changed and restrictions and various things. So it's definitely not something, but it was a good grounding, and it's hard work, and it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, and
it sets you up well, doesn't it? It sets you up well for sort of life in many respects, which we'll come on and talk about in some of the other things in a moment.
I think so. It's the other thing was, it was 7 days a week. So then when you go,
Wow.
yeah, oh yeah. So when you go into to an office environment, you might work 5 days a week. Easy, isn't it? To get more money or whatever. But yeah, no. So then I joined this small IT business in Eastbourne. Struggled to start. Like building a pipeline, just getting hard yards, build a pipeline from scratch. It's always hard, and I say that to people if I speak to them now. Then it probably took about 5 to 6 months to build a proper pipeline, and then it was all started to move. Had a difference of opinion with the boss after about 3 or 4 years, which actually resulted in me gambling my house or putting my house on the line and buying the major share of the company. Again, got super focused, realised what I needed to focus on, what I didn't. And kind of split that business at the end of 1999. That's how old I am. Merged a bit of a business with a company in Godalming, and we grew that company from about 14 people to about 42 people, I think. And then we sold that to a PE-backed firm in 2012. And so I've been coaching and mentoring and.
I want to talk a bit more about the rise of the company, because I know that's what you did and what it's incredible your achievements there. But I want to just go back to the commission-only salesperson. What does it feel like in a way to be that commission-only salesperson and be in a position where if you don't basically work, you don't earn?
It's quite straightforward. I think
I need this interview to be directed to the point. It's just good.
I mean, obviously there's less, the thing was, if you actually break it down, when we worked on a commercial fishing boat, you don't catch any fish, you don't get any money. So it's not too dissimilar. If we don't do something, we don't progress, and something doesn't happen, we don't earn any money. The other thing is as well is I think I've always been quite bullish, and I've always been quite confident in my own ability. And the one thing that we're able to do is, if you are successful in a commission-only role, you generally earn quite a lot of money because you've got no salary, there's no overheads, there's actually limited commitment from at the time from the employer / post. So yeah, I mean, it's like, well, I'll just work harder than everyone else, and it's what's really quite interesting. And if I speak about the row and the adventure stuff at schools, I use this word extraordinary, and I never really knew what it meant until somebody pointed out, Matt, that's 2 words. It's like extra and ordinary. And actually, I kind of worked that one out. It's like, it sounds really, really dumb, but, about 19, 20 years old, I kind of knew what it meant. Of course I did. But when actually somebody turned around and said, well, all you need to do is just do extra, because you're going to do extra, because the ordinary people won't do extra. So if you could just do that, then you're already ahead and above and beyond other people.
What a brilliant way to look at it, actually, and to think of it is that, yeah, like you say, just being better, slightly different to other people. Just a quick question.
Just do more. Whatever it is, just do a bit more.
Just do a bit more. And we'll talk a lot, and we'll talk a lot about the row in a moment. But one thing that you talk about training, you had this 12-week training to get started. But what part of that was sales related training? How did you learn to sell? Because you've been on a fishing boat, and I guess you do need to sell, I guess, sometimes to get your to get things done. But the actual element of selling and what you had to do to learn to sell and to sort of build and become successful in sales. How did those skills develop in you?
I've always been very, very curious. Very curious. My dad, bless him, has passed away now, but my dad used to read a newspaper at breakfast table, and he'd have it open like that. And I'd read on the back, and it would say the chief executive of Sainsbury's is now the chief executive of ICI. And I go, well, that's groceries, and now that's chemicals or something. And I said, what's he know about that, Dad? He goes, son, doesn't need to. And it's like, I just have been curious about those sorts of things. And I think one of the things is I'm just being curious about how it's like when somebody says don't need to, it's about the concept, the process, and all those sorts of things. And what really intrigued me about the selling was that I always thought, and dare I say it, probably an awful lot of your listeners think it's all about the gift of the gab, and it's just we can't be we can't almost sometimes can't be further from the truth. It's about actually just listen. What's this person trying to do? What are they trying to achieve? And of course, there's a system and a process and things like that. But I think as much as anything else, it's just be curious and actually ask really good quality questions. And in terms from a listener's perspective, how, what, why? If you start thinking about starting your sentences with how, what, and why, you're going to be so much better than the person that just asks standard hygiene questions.
I love that, and it just talks a lot about what we're both aligned on a sales perspective, as we'll talk about at the end. If you're watching this, there's a little thing me and Matt are doing at the end, which we'll share with you. But I think it's such a great point around being able to be curious and just be intrigued by other people and what's I was talking about getting inside the mind of someone else and how you can get inside that person's mind. What are they thinking right now? What are they doing? And that ability to just think and be a bit like, oh, what's going on there? But unfortunately, it's why you've built built a career in mentoring. It's why we have to do what we do, because not a lot of people do that seemingly in some cases, or people they're learning to maybe doing it, but it's not common for most people. They think sales is about talking and presenting and pitching, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I think what we've done is we've drilled in the whole process, but you've got to have the skills around that as well, as much as anything else. I think one of the other things I did as well that was a bit of a light that came on later on, and that is, and I don't mind sharing this. So I come from a very, very academic family. So my dad was a consulting engineer. My mum was a high-level music teacher. My older brother, is a doctor of mathematics, and my younger brother is a doctor of horticulture. Now I have no qualifications at all. So I was kind of, that was, my brothers actually came up with a few creative ones for me when we were sitting at the dinner table. Let us ask. But the reality of it is, so I actually, in an embarrassing way, I kind of walked around my late teens, early 20s, actually thinking I was stupid. And it's quite obviously, imagine, quite demotivating. Until somebody points out, Matt, there's multiple levels of intelligence. And it's like, I didn't realise there was. I thought it was just reading books and passing exams. And in actual fact, it turns out I'm not stupid. I'm actually pretty smart, because those other things and those over what we call soft skills, which I think are probably more important than anything else, I actually scored really, really highly on. And it's that kind of, we call it emotional intelligence or whatever you want to call it these days. But it's those sorts of things and being able to feel and sense, and again, back that up with being curious and asking high quality questions that can get in, as you say, get in the mind of the buyer.
And so right, and we're on the same page of that, and we'll maybe catch up on some of those elements at the end. But when you were talking about, you made that gamble to sell your house and invest in the business and build and merge it with the two companies, and then build this company, which you then ultimately sold. And I know that was something that was a great moment in your life when you sold that. But talk to us about that process of building a company and achieving that growth, because to go from 10 to 40 people is tough. It's more people. It's a responsibility. Talk to people about our journey and what the key sort of 2 or 3 things you learned from that.
Oh, good. I think, well, the first, I didn't sell the house. I just remortgaged it.
Still, yeah, but
if anyone's listening, it was pre-money laundering, and I told 1 or 2 porkies on the application forms, but that's another story. But I think, I don't know the answers. If I'm mentoring it, I'll turn that around. If I'm mentoring a business or I'm working with a company, I'm quite honest and I'm quite vulnerable. I'm quite prepared to be vulnerable. If I don't know the answer, it's like, I don't know the answer. I will find out. I will speak to people who have been there before. And I think that's one thing. I've always been open and honest. I think I've Um, I'd like to think I've made slightly more good decisions than bad. I've made some howlers, absolute howlers. And some of those you'll actually be rolling around laughing at. But I mean,
Give us a couple of howlers. Come on, just because people are listening to this and they're probably running businesses and growing businesses and achieving things, and they're thinking, well, go on, but you've been and done it, and you've sold a company, but yeah, and done a lot of things. Give me a howler.
One of the worst ones I did is we were taking a person on to be a pre-sales consultant. Cracking interview, really, really good, nice guy. Made him a job offer, and he accepted the job offer. It came with a company car, so we sent him a list of vehicles that were in our price range that was in our kind of, that's what we did. He chose a car, which was great. We got the car in order, and then a couple of weeks before his start date, we needed to tidy up on all the paperwork. So we needed your driving license details and all that, and then we found out he's only got a provisional license.
Slight issue,
but I don't know. It's just, let's assume, and I'm again one of those sorts of things. A sales lesson: assume makes an ass out of you and me. So ask the sensible questions, and that's the other thing I say to. So one of the things I learned as well is in my early career, I would sit in a meeting, and particularly we were in tech, right? So it would be, the conversation would be about kilobytes, kilobits, wiggly bits and giggly bits and all these sorts of things. And I'd sit there. Sometimes I'd be embarrassed to actually just, can I just, I kind of know what you're talking about and all this sort of stuff. And I made the notes, and then I'd find out afterwards, which is just, and one of the things I think happens, particularly in tech, is that assumptions are made in those sorts of conversations.
Yeah.
And one of the things I would encourage anybody, whether it's in sales or not in sales, is actually be honest with yourself and actually be bold enough during meetings or at the end of meetings when you summarize the meeting. Okay, so can I just clarify this is my expectation at the end of the meeting? Can I just clarify what you think, what you said was that? Can I just confirm my understanding of it? And I think, again, that's a little nugget that I try and share with people if I'm coaching. Don't leave anything to misinterpretation. Just make sure it's clear at the end of whatever you're summarizing.
And we'll talk about misinterpretation in a minute when you go on about rowing a boat across the Atlantic, because you can't have any misinterpretation in those situations, can you? But just going up to the final point around, and we're going to talk about lots of things today, but the element when you did sell the company, I have done a previous interview before about this, but for those that haven't listened to that, that moment when you obviously go through that process of, someone else is wanting to buy your business and you go, you go through that process of sale. How did it feel? Can you remember the moment when the deal was done and it was all signed and monies were transferred and all that sort of stuff? Can you remember that feeling and how it felt, and what did you do then at that point?
Again, I don't mind being vulnerable. So the run up to exiting and selling a company is very, very stressful. There's a huge amount of due diligence going on. You're trying to spin multiple plates. You're trying not to give away too much to staff. You're trying not to give away too much to customers and all these sorts of things. But there's it's a very, very stressful period of time. Get good advisors. I'd say if anyone's around, get good advisors. But yeah, that period of time, we then agreed a closure meeting, which was in a solicitor's, a lawyer's office in the city of London. So it's all brushed aluminium and glass and all this sort of stuff. And there's just rows and rows of paper with all sorts of coloured Post-it notes that need signing and all these sorts of things. And I think one of the memories I have was actually sitting in that boardroom before we did it, thinking that, because we all suffer at times from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Thinking, I used to work on a fishing boat, and now I used to work on a fishing boat, and now somebody's giving us quite a lot of money for something that we built. Surely we're going to get found out in a minute, aren't we? Anyway, we did. Obviously, we completed the deal. Actually, it was a bit of a daze. Went home, And I think because it was all late, rush. I got home at about, it was sort of 11 o'clock, midnight or something like that. My wife was already in bed, and she said, "Is it all done?" And I said, "Yeah." And I just laid there on bed, just with wide eyes and stuff like that. Anyway, I set my alarm. For about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't been asleep for very long, and my office was up in the loft at the time. And so I set my alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning. And they woke up and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to log on to the internet banking to see if my money's there." So I went upstairs into the office and I logged on to the internet banking. And the deal, there's various deals and stuff like that, but the vast majority of my money was on that day of completion. And yeah, I've got a big amount of money in my bank account. And I just came back down, and I hadn't slept much beforehand. And I slept even less afterwards. I just laid there in bed, and my wife said to me, she just rolled over and she said, "Is it there?" And I said, "Yeah." And she just rolled back to bed, went back to sleep, went to sleep. So anyway, but that was that. And then there was just the days. And the other thing was that what was a really, really, I'm now a spare part. So I built this thing with my other teammates who are great. And somebody's given us a decent amount of money for it. So I remember it being a bit of a daze, because the first week I was just wandering around, not really doing anything, because I was part of the deal was that two of the three of us main shareholders stayed on, and I didn't want to work for a bigger company, so I'm out. I'm completely out. So I'm wandering around. I'm feeling a little bit lost. But I've got to admit, after about a month, I was probably the most lost I've been professionally, because I just didn't know what to do next.
That sense of purpose. I remember interviewing Mike Clare from Dreams when he said when he sold his business that he sold it, and it's a really interesting story actually that which you like. He said he sold it on the Friday. So to you, he woke up on Monday, checked everything was there, and he'd sold his, and he was open. He sold his for 200 million quid, right? So he said on the Friday, they did all the deal. Woke up on the Monday, and he said he wasn't allowed to tell the staff, his team, basically, what had happened. The same as you probably when you were going through that due process. And I think I remember saying to me, he said, "Oh, they didn't pay me for the Monday." So I think they didn't pay me for the Monday, which is where we laugh at that. You just had 200 million quid, and he still wanted money for the Monday. But then he said that he cried for a week. Said he cried for a week because his company, and he lost his sense of purpose and that element. And it just shows you how important purpose is to us, doesn't it, as people?
Totally. And obviously one of the other things, me, I've going back to that thing when I was in my teens and 20s, and feeling, incorrectly feeling that I was a bit stupid. I felt that I always felt I needed to show myself and prove myself. And that's why I kind of ended up, purpose, immersing myself in some of the other sporty challenges that I kind of went into as well. And to be honest with you, it sounds horrible. I mean, I say my dad's no longer with me, but it was almost like, because I felt like I needed to compensate for my, dare I say, lack of performance in that kind of academic space, that I needed to almost prove to other people that I wasn't an idiot, and that there was something about Matt Garman and that sounds really, really bad, but it almost fired me up even more. It's like, well, I'll bloody prove you. I can show you I can do this stuff. I can show you. But it's quite difficult when you're growing up in an environment where it's like, I don't actually, I feel like the odd one out.
But it's interesting to talk about that, because I actually think motivation is really critical. Both of us are motivated people. We're driven. I know from, but having that motivation and drive is a critical factor, isn't it? Right? Whether it's been motivating to someone that's told you couldn't do it, or to try and make yourself feel, similar to other people, or just because you made a mistake in the past, having that motivation and drive to want, we all call it our duvet chat. Me and you both get up in the morning because we're excited about the day. We want to get on with things, but you've got to have it, right? If you haven't, you've got to find it.
I think so. And one of the other things I've learned as well is that I'm, whilst I'm very, very driven, I'm a team guy. And that's really quite interesting, because I played rugby until I was 40. And, I was a skipper of a number of teams that I was involved in. So I've always been a bit of a leader, but I'm not one of these people that's a complete, can go off and do things completely on their own. I like, what's the quote? The quote is, if you want to go fast, go on your own. If you want to go far, go with others.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I've realised, and particularly more as in career and stuff like that, is I'm very, very driven, and I'm quite good at kind of pulling things together and that. But I feed on other people as much as I'd like. I'd like to think that I give as I give probably more than I take, if that makes sense, into those contributions and those environments.
Yeah, you do. No, for sure you do. I know that, and that's the key part of it. So we're going to move on to the row in a minute. Before we just one final question around. We once you sort of sold the business and you started, then you're being in a position, right? What do I go and do? You started looking into sort of mentoring and whatever. I know, I knew you from when you were doing Sales Plus Profit as well, and you were so you obviously just decided, right? I'm going to go again. Basically, what can you remember that journey from sort of like you having that month of feeling lost to then thinking, right? No, I know I'm going to go again, and this is now what I'm going to go and do and focus on.
I think I didn't know, really, to be honest with you. I was still floundering a little bit. I mean, the one great thing, so we sold a business in the April of 2012. Okay. Well, most of your listeners who are old enough to realise is that we hosted the Olympics in 2012. So my only yes, one of my treats was that while everyone was working their backsides off, I was on the return tickets website every week for the return tickets to the Olympics. So I did treat myself to a few events at the Olympics and stuff like that. But then I was still thinking, what next? And in actual fact, and I don't believe he realises quite how much important I was lost. And one of my ex-software clients rang me up and said, "Matt, what are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know." But I did it in such a way that it made it sound like I was looking at exploring all sorts of options and stuff like that. But I've got to be honest, I was pretty lost. And I said, "I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that." And he actually said to me, he said, "Well, while you're thinking about it, can you get down here and beat up my sales team?" And those were the words that he used. And I said, "Well, what do you mean by beat up?" And he said, "Well, we never hit the targets. We never closed the deals that we're due to close. We've got a revolving door of salespeople. We don't have any process, any structure." And I kind of said, "Well, I can do that stuff. I'm okay with doing that sort of stuff." And that was the evolution of me moving into more sales coaching and sales mentoring and stuff like that.
Which is what you love and you spend time doing. But I'm gonna move on to the road, because again, we're gonna probably one of the things that you've done a lot of incredible things in your life, but I'm guessing it's pretty much up there as I know your son and your daughter will be the most, and your wife will be the top three on your list and incredible things. But rowing the Atlantic has got to be up there as being one of the most incredible things you do, because you've done. And for those that don't know the details, some bare facts, and I'll let you share the details around. But it's I think you told me you were on the boat for 7 weeks, 6 weeks, or you started. There are some incredible. Tell people about that. Tell people about the actual the race itself, and then we'll talk about the preparation and the mental elements to make it happen.
So just before that, so I went from rugby, which was a team sport, and then a mate of mine got me. He said, "I'll come and do a triathlon," and it's like, I said, "I can't swim. I haven't ridden a bike since my paper round, and I'm a lumpy runner." He said to me, he said, "Yeah, but mate," he said, "you're a real stubborn bastard when you get going." Anyway, cut a long story short, so I went from from rugby, I then went into some individual stuff and triathlons, Ironmans, and all these sorts of things. And then I realised that in actual fact, I'm better in a small team. So I've done some other team challenges as well. We did a
swim in the channel, yeah.
Swim in the channel, yeah. And then I was looking, and I'd always been curious about the row of the Atlantic, and probably because I'd spent time at sea and all these sorts of things. So I kind of I was looking at it, and I was chatting to a couple of people, and a good friend of mine, Neil, who I'd known from rugby. We were at a lunch, and Neil's wife said, "That time you did another one of your silly challenges, Matt, isn't it?" And to which my wife Sam then piped up. She said, you'll never guess what he wants to do now. He wants to row across the Atlantic Ocean. And she kind of, Madeline's lovely, she kind of turned around and said, "Oh, I think you'd like to do that, Neil, wouldn't you?" Not thinking for one moment that he'd lock in on it. Anyway, following morning, I mean, so, that was a rugby club lunch. We'd had a few drinks and everything else. But the following morning, I got about 3 or 4 texts from Neil. "If you're going to do that, I'm in." Anyway, so then we kind of started putting together the team. But I mean, the extent, is...
What year was that? What year was that? Can you remember?
That was 2020.
Right.
It was 2020. Actually, that was about 5 months after my dad died. And I had actually said to him that I was contemplating doing it. And he was actually, I used to pick him up. So when he was dying, I'd go around. He used to like looking out to sea, so I'd pick him up, and I'd pick him up in the car, and we'd go and sit out and look out to sea. When I say pick him up, I mean when he was super frail. I mean physically pick him up and put him in the car. And he was looking out, and he's looking out to sea, and we were just having a chat, and that kind of end bit sort of thing. And I said, I'm thinking of rowing an ocean, and he just chuckled. He said, "That doesn't surprise me." Anyway, so, and I kind of treated that positively, sort of validation, really. But no, so we put ultimately, it's a non-stop rowing race. Once a year, you leave La Gomera in the Canary Islands, and you row 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, and you arrive in Nelson's Dockyard in Antigua. And I say to people, it's the highest highs I've had and the lowest lows I've had. So we were originally a team of, in the end, we put together a team of 4. We ended up dropping down to a team of 3. So it's and as Wooly, one of the other teammates, he kind of summed it up beautifully. He said it's simply brutal, but brutally simple. You just literally, you let go of La Gomera and you just row. And we came up with a shift pattern. So we would row 2 people. 2 people would be rowing during the daylight hours. So we'd do 2 hours on, 1 hour off, and we'd rotate every hour. So 2 hours on, 1 hour off daytime, and then at night time we'd drop down to 1 rower and we'd row for 1 hour, and then we'd have 2 hours off. So, and we literally eat, sleep, row, repeat for what ended up being 49 days. Yeah, so we made landfall on I think it was the 30th or the 31st of January last year.
Incredible. So he's actually coming up to the anniversary. I should admit, I knew it was last year. I don't know why. It's just the last year, so lots happened. But so just to rephrase that, 49 days. And I asked you this question before, and you told, because I always assume, because there's a number of other boats that do it with you, isn't it? On it's the Talisker Whiskey Challenge. If anyone wants to, I think it's the Talisker Whiskey Challenge still.
It's not called that anymore. It's now been renamed the World's Toughest Row.
Okay, the world's toughest row, but there you go. So have a search it if you want to. But I remember asking you this question because I saw all these other boats and I was tracking you and sort of where you were in the ocean and all these other things. And there's this sort of conception that you're going to see lots of people, and of course, if anything does happen, there'll be a safety boat that comes along. But it's not like that, is it?
Well, there were 41
boats, but you're so far apart from people that it can.
I mean, So they would say, you're on your own. There were 41 boats taking part last year in the race. There was some professional rowers, and then there was some old gigs like us, sort of thing. And then there's 2 support yachts that basically meander across the fleet to be called upon for life or death reasons. But when you say to somebody, "Oh, that's great to have somebody alongside," and it's like, no, they could be 5 days away from getting to us. So it really is the vastness, and then when when I can't remember when it was, but moving into early January, and we're halfway across the Atlantic Ocean, and it's 1,500 miles in that direction and 1,500 miles in that direction. Oh, and by the way, 6.5 miles in that direction as well. So it's you want a sense of being remote. It's right up there.
So and obviously so many things on. We're probably talk forever about this sort of stuff, but what you see, and obviously the repeating elements of not being on land and the food. There's lots of questions people will have around it, I'm sure. And by the way, if you have got questions, we might even do a live actually session. People are interested in where you can ask you live questions around this. But just what was the most breathtaking part of that? When I'm guessing there are plenty of times where you row in the morning and you see the sun come up, and you probably see. What was the most, I wouldn't say breathtaking because you're knackered from rowing, but was there a part in there when you were thinking, wow, I'm doing this and this is just, I've got all this space around me?
A lot. I think and I think we didn't see that many boats, so we must have seen about 12, 15 boats and the whole thing, or ships and the whole thing. So there's lots and lots of isolation. Whilst you've got two teammates, you're still in your own thoughts, and sometimes they're good thoughts, sometimes they're not so good thoughts. The appreciation that you're just a grain of sand, but I mean, it's a 27-foot ocean rowing boat. There were times when there were sort of 30, 40, occasionally 50-foot swells. You're just nothing. Okay, so the enormity of and the nature, ruggedness of the Atlantic Ocean is amazing. Dolphin, I mean, wildlife, we'd have all sorts of wildlife. So, giant sea turtles, whales at the end of the oars, the obligatory sort of kamikaze flying fish every night. And then dolphins. I mean, dolphins are amazing. Everyone knows it, but you could be having a really, really rubbish day, or you've had a rubbish night shift, and then you'd get visited by a pod of 30 or 40 sort of cajoling dolphins at dawn. The sun was coming up and the dolphins are flicking around us, and it's like, man, this is actually really, really awesome. So that whole simplicity it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
You mentioned the lowest lows and the highest highs. Obviously, just talk us through a bit about the lowest lows. Can you remember that lowest low point where you were, that point where you were feeling really, can you remember what it was? Was it missing family, or was it just what it was?
It hurts. It hurts. I mean, I'm a year on in and I've still got problems with one of my hands. So, I mean, it hurts. Your backside is hurting, your hands are hurting, your back is hurting. And it's when you're doing and sometimes, you're on if you're doing we're rowing one person at a time at night. You're there at night. Everything is hurting. Your hands are hurting, your back. Everything is hurting. And then you've and you look at your watch, and you've got 25 minutes until you change shift. And then it's hurt. Everything's hurting, and then you look at your watch, and it's 22 minutes until I change shift. It's like nothing's changed. Time stood still, sort of thing. And it's just that whole thing. But you just feel, and it's like, and the other thing I've got 3 stars tattooed on my shoulder, which was my wife and my son and my daughter, and that was my thing, my psychological thing, that they're looking over my shoulder all the time, sort of thing. So that was my kind of reason for doing it. Then the other thing I realised as well. So one of the things when you're really, really low, but I would look up at the stars, and there's no light pollution, so the stars are just beautiful. And I don't know anything about sort of stars. I didn't know much about star forms and stuff like that. But Orion, and then there's Orion's belt, which is 3 stars in a line. So I would sit there, and if I'm having a bad shift or a bad night or anything else like that, I would just make that mental connection between my 3 stars and those 3 stars, and I'd sit there talking to Sam, Joseph, and Molly while I'm rowing, and then that 22 minutes that needed to
Quickly
has gone, and then so that generally is okay, and then one of the worst things that can happen is if you've done your hour shift or something like that, and you're just getting ready to go back into the cabin and have some rest, or you've only got a 2-hour window. You've got a 2-hour window before you're back on shift. You've got to get some food down in there, a quick drink. You got to, have a wee or whatever you need to do. So, but then one of the worst things that would happen is of your 1-hour shift, you've been fine, and then you're just about to change shift, and you get a wave, or you get a splash all the way over the side of the boat, and it's like, I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes getting dry and warm again. That's pretty. You know, you just find yourself shouting up at the moon. It's like, come on, this isn't fair.
But obviously it's but you know, obviously we talked forever about this, and I think we will do a live actually, because I think it'll be a good thing. We'll talk, especially in a bit, we'll talk in a moment. But describe that feeling when you saw land as well for the first time in 50 odd days in Antigua, when you could see it. Describe that feeling. And I know you talked about a story about the night before where you'd been literally, you could have gone off course. I remember you telling me that you could have gone off course, but it was like, you know, it would have then taken you a few more days to get there. But describe that feeling of like being able to see land, and then finally that moment when you finished. There's a great picture of you, like, you know, we'll put it up there, of you feeling that way.
They say to you should probably start seeing land about 45 miles out, and we did. We started seeing land about 25 miles out, and it was sort of lunchtime of the day of arrival, and and 6 hours later, it still looked the same distance away. It was just like, you know, we're talking about and that was the other thing. We had this massive monsoon shower. So the last afternoon before we arrived in Antigua, we were all talking about, we make sure we're clean and we don't smell too horrible for when we meet everyone. So we literally just got the bar of soap out, and we were taking turns with bar of soap, just having a clean in this massive monsoon shower that just flattened the sea. And then it all cleared, and we got closer and closer, and, you know, you get excited, but we found it really, really tough. The water just ended up like treacle. We were hardly getting anywhere. We had wind on the shoulders. It was pretty tough. And then you eventually come around the headland, Shirley Heights, which is the headlands there, and you see the whole thing. You see Nelson's Dockyard open up, and it's dark, and there's a lot. I thought, stupidly, I was looking at it, all these really tall lights. I was thinking, blimey, there's some construction going on here, isn't there? And it was just the lights on the top of the yacht masts from the marina. But you come round the corner, and there's two boats that greet you. Everyone thinks it's just the video, the media boat, but there's two boats. There's the media boat that comes along. There's this little tiny rib that comes alongside, and the guys take your passports from you.
What that?
Yeah, and then they know what hotels you're staying at, and they bring them back later and stuff like that. But and then the media boats, you know, they're doing donuts, and then it's you basically got a port and starboard buoy that you row in between the port and starboard buoy. And there's a fort up on the left hand side, and we were so fortunate. I mean, we came in at night, so you got the flares and everything else like that. But we were fortunately got in at about 11:30, and some of the pubs and bars and restaurants were all kicking out. So we had a really, really decent crowd. And then the media boats, you know, it's like 100 meters to go, 50 meters to go, and they're kind of urging, you know, ushering us up towards these two buoys. And then you go over the buoy, and I don't know what it feel like to win an event at the Olympics or something like that. But you go over the line, you know, and then all of a sudden the race, these flares are going off. There's a banging and hooters and all this sort of stuff going on. There's just lights and everything else like that. It was absolutely amazing. And then we kind of we have our trophy shot of the flares on the deck and all this sort of stuff. And then a very, very slow row up to the pontoon, and to obviously meet friends and family and all that sort of stuff. And I was just kind of wobbling around on the quayside. And I was actually wobbling for about 2 days, pretty much.
I was going to ask you, that first time to put foot on land for after, you know, was it 59 days, wasn't it?
49 days.
49 days. The first, how did that feel? And also, I was going to ask you then, about getting you again emotional, how did it feel to see Sam and Molly and Joseph at that point as well?
It was just that, I think it's just that. And I think it doesn't matter whether it's the row, whether it's life, whether it's business, whether it's sales. It's that you put 3 years into this, and then it's there's that, and I hope you listeners won't mind me swearing, but it's that going over the line and meeting the families, and then it's like, we fucking did that.
Yeah.
absolutely did that.
Yeah.
And then there's just that, and then yeah, just trying to, yeah, just
Did your feet actually? Did you actually? Because obviously you stood up, but did your feet wobble a bit when you were on land?
oh, massively, yeah, wobbling around and holding people were holding, not completely holding me up, but stopping you from swaying. I'd actually thought when I first stood up on the side of the pontoon, I thought it was a floating pontoon that was moving, but it was a concrete, it's a concrete quayside, and I was still sort of moving around a little bit, really.
And tell people how much weight, because probably there's lots of questions people ask. If you have got questions, by the way, if you're in the podcast, put it in the comment section and we'll answer them, or we'll do a live with Matt. But people ask questions around, what did you lost weight and what did you look? I remember looking at you had this big beard, didn't you? And you must have, although your hair didn't grow, did it? To be fair,
I had a stupid tuft on the top of my head. It was just a bit like that. But I'm not allowed to have a beard like that again. I had the best suntan I'd probably ever gonna have. Sorry, what was that?
I was going to say, how much weight did you lose over the course of the?
Yeah,
you can eat, but you're not eating. Obviously, 49 days on sea. You're not exactly. You can't pack most things under that. So you lost quite a lot of weight from doing that.
I lost 15% of my body weight.
Wow.
So you're supposed to have 6,000. It's all worked out. I mean, the organisers of Atlantic campaigns, it's absolutely brilliant. They are so fantastic at planning this stuff. So I had to eat. You had to eat 60 calories of food per kilogram of body weight. So I was just under 100 kilos when I left. So that's nearly 6,000 calories a day. I just couldn't eat that amount of food. So I would probably have three of the ration packs. They're up to 1,000 calorie ration packs, and then we'd also have our snack packs, which are sweets, chocolate bars, nuts, protein shakes, those sorts of things. It's quite calorie dense, and some of it's just easy to get down. But the other thing that's really, really strange is that, and we treated us. So we also had a couple of cases of. We took a couple of cases of Coke. So our Saturday evening meal, whatever we had to something to eat on a Saturday evening, we'd have a can of fizzy pop. That was it. But it was that was the other thing. It was lukewarm.
So it's not that great.
Not quite the same. But yeah, see, the good thing about it is from a diet, you're not eating all the crap. We could come off this call in whenever 15, 20 minutes. I go to the kitchen and nibble on a biscuit or whatever. You got none of that. It's just like go. It's just and it's so you're just eating the. But the other thing that happens as well is your taste buds change as well. Okay. So some of the things that you kind of some of the ration packs are absolutely revolting. But I remember one of them, and I put it off for quite some time. It was fish with potato and parsley sauce, right? And we'd get these thermos bowls, and whoever's doing the food, they tip the three freeze-dried thermos bowls, put the water in it, give it a stir, leave it for 10 minutes, and you open it up and you go, oh, that doesn't look too great. Sometimes it's a little bit thick, so you need a little bit more water, and it's just anyway. There's one, and it was like, and then somebody said to me, about halfway through, you kind of got used to the things that you want, and it's like, what's for lunch, or and it's like, oh, it's fish with potato and parsley sauce, and it's like. That sounds absolutely horrendous. And if for some really, really weird reason, I actually started becoming quite partial to fish.
So now you are Sam for it for dinner, mate?
No, absolutely not. The thought of it was revolting. But sometimes, but that one wasn't too bad. But some of the other ones, just really bad. And you'd eat it, and it'd just be like, like paste. Wallpaper, which like, and then, it's just fuel. You get to the stage, it's just fuel. So when it came like that, this sounds really, really revolting, and I apologise, but you'd literally just give it an extra squirt of water, like a lot of water, just give it a stir, and just get it down. And it's almost like hold your nose, get it down, and just go again, because you've got to get back on yours. That's the thing.
Look, we've got 5-10 minutes left, and we're going to talk through something at the end, which we've just we're kicking off, which is exciting. But just one of the things around the sort of two questions really. A, what were the two things that the row in the Atlantic, major things you took from it, or that it taught you, or that you gained from doing that experience? And B, if anyone's thinking here, well, I'd like to do this, where should they start to look? Because as you know, I'm one of those people that have been asking those questions to you, and we are. But if you know, but what were the two? You know, what is there one or two or maybe three things that whole experience just taught you that are great things for people listening to this relating to their business or to life or in general?
Two things. The first thing I would say is, I mean, you've got to pick your team. We had a good team. One of the things I always say is I would always try and give more than I take. So if I'm in a team, I'll give you more than I take. So in terms of that energy. And the other thing that happened as well was when we left, we were on the quayside in La Gomera, and there was a boat, a rowing boat next to us. And there's a lady in that boat, Gemma. She'd rowed the ocean before, and there's just a little bit of chat before we all let go. Now you get let go of the boats; they go every 2 or 5 minutes or something like that, and there's a big cheer on all this. And there was a bit of chat about something, and then somebody said, "All you need to do is eat, sleep, and row, repeat. That's all you need to do." And she said, "And be kind." Because there are times when you're going to be so low that you need to be kind to other people so that they're kind back to you when you need it. And that's one of the things that I took from it as well. So, and I think, there's an awful lot of, we share a lot more. I've always been kind of vulnerable. I could never play poker and stuff like that. I'm always happy to be open about stuff like that. But I think, you never know what someone's going through. You actually, until you've walked a mile in their shoes, you do not want to know what somebody's going through in their head and stuff like that. So, eat, sleep, row, repeat, be kind.
Love that. Love that. Great way to sort of summarize that. And as I say, if people do want to have a look at it, they can.
I'm sorry. It's the world's toughest row.com.
The world's toughest row. And it takes, because I said this to you, it takes two years to plan to go, doesn't it? So if you're thinking of doing it for next year, you better start now. It's pretty much, if someone's going, I want to do this, 2025, they're pretty much at the end of this year. It's too late now, isn't it?
I think looking at it, I think it's fully booked until 27.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Goodness me.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So
it takes, but it does. That sounds like, that's too far out. But it's like we were nearly 3 years in the planning, and there were still things that we didn't know when we left. So you gotta be, as I say to people, and I kind of look them in the eye if it's about sales or if it's about business. It's like, are you in or are you all in? And for me, it's like, I want somebody that's all in.
All in, exactly. Well, and finally, lead and finish off, because look, there's so many great stories around it, and thank you for being so open and sharing it with you. But we've been good friends for a while, and we've been talking about some other stuff, exciting and plans to go forward, and I guess maybe it's a good chance to talk about it now, actually, isn't it? Because we were talking about some number of things and a few things we wanted to do, and I came to you with sort of a couple of ideas of a business option in the end of last year, and we've now kicked off, haven't we? Which we're now, by the time you listen to this, we've probably launched a new business. So go on, you share it, since we're in business doing this. So talk a little bit about it.
Super exciting. I think we've both been frustrated at times trying to recruit good quality, hungry talent at clients that we work with. We've got connections in South Africa. So we set up a business, growth resourcing, ability to source for UK companies some really, really energetic, hungry young talent, not always young, some experienced talent for UK businesses. And I think the other thing as well is being able to not only employ people and show them a pathway, but also being able to support and mentor those people along the journey, even if they don't end up working for us long term. The feeling that perhaps we can kind of help some people along the way in their careers and their life as well. So good business. I think it's gonna be a business, bit of fun for us in the UK, and providing some really, really good quality resource that we're going to coach and mentor for those UK clients. But also that ability to even if people are unsuccessful with us, we've made a commitment to give them training courses and other bits and pieces, hopefully, so that we can signpost them to improving what they want to do moving forward as well.
Exactly. I know, we're super excited to be part of it alongside another guy, Nick, and the team in South Africa. And like you say, it's about trying to make sure we support hungry, ambitious, people to achieve their goals. And we believe it's going to be very exciting. So if you've got sales or marketing people that you need in your team, then I guess to reach out to us. There's a website set up for it, which will be live by the time this goes live. So where can people find out about it, Matt?
Growthresourcing.co.uk.
There you go. So come and have a look at Matt and me, and come and have a look, I should say, at what we're offering. Have a conversation with us. If you are in a position where you're thinking, I'd love to add some people to my team, but I don't need them to be based where I'm based, but I want great, hungry, dynamic people that are going to really take my brand and my company to another level and really represent my company well, then that's the sort of people that we're going to be bringing on board. And the good thing is the contracts here, you don't need to have a long-term commitment for it. We're going to give you people the chance that, we're going to prove our value to you. So it's going to be an exciting path for us to help. And as Matt said, changing, helping a number of, people in South Africa achieve the goals they want to. People forget, there's some really hungry people out there that want to do the best. And it's going to be an exciting time, isn't it? So
it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, but it's going to be fun, I think, as well.
Yeah, exactly. So look, we've come to the end of the podcast, and thank you so much for giving up your time, mate. Where can people connect with you? Obviously, you're on LinkedIn, I know, and you've got your website. If people want to, hear more about your story and get to, I know you speak at a lot of events and you do a lot of presentations and speaking, but where can people connect with you if they've been inspired by your story today, as I know I am? So
LinkedIn, Matt Garman, and also or mattgarman.com website. Quite simple.
Fantastic. Look, well, thank you so much, mate, for being on the episode of the podcast. It's great. I hope it's given people some really inspiration that, if you've been in tough times in life, if people say they're not people think, oh, I'm not intelligent, wherever else, doesn't matter. You can achieve incredible things like Matt has, whether it's building and selling businesses, or whether it's, swimming the channel. You mentioned swimming the channel, but swimming the channel, rowing the Atlantic, or then creating new businesses with new people at points in time. Life's there for taking. And as Matt said, be kind and just focus on what you want to achieve and be all in. And if you're all into what you want to achieve, then you're going to get great success. So thanks ever so much, mate, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, so that was it. That was Matt Garman, and on the podcast for Diary of a Sales Expert, Diary of a Sales Expert. Get my website. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have, then please like and subscribe to the channel. If you can rate the channel as well, it would also really help us, because it will help other people get stories and hear stories from people like Matt to be inspired by. But that's it for this week. Thanks ever so much for listening, and speak to you soon.